Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings to all my knights and padawans out there. You are listening to Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi. This is episode 67 of the podcast, where we're going to be doing our first impressions show of Echoes of Eternity 2.0. We recently got the draft update where they switched the curated packs order, going draft pack, echoes, draft pack, and they added an additional 74, 73 cards. I always get that mixed up. Anywho, joining me on the line, coming from Colorado, we have John Holio. What's up, buddy?
What the heck was that?
I was giving you enough time to realize I was talking about you this time.
No, I was ready. You'll never catch me off guard like that a second time. Anyway, I was very ready.
Oh, my bad. All right. I'm gonna leave it in there so people like me talking slow and they're like, "What's wrong with Jedi?" And then you're just going,
what's wrong with Jedi? That's what I was thinking too.
I was like, "Is he having a stroke? What's going on?"
Oh no.
That's gonna be our new sign in. Instead of anything witty, it's just people trolling me in different ways. That other great voice that was making sure that I was in tip top shape is Alex. Yo.
How's it going, guys? Good to see you.
Wait, we're oh man, are we streaming really? Because I'm totally in my Hugh Hefner bathrobe.
No, whatever. I see your little logos next to your names.
Oh, okay. I really think you should switch yours to your Desholio.
I almost did that today. I'm gonna do it.
You totally should. I think it's pretty epic.
Yeah, the picture's really good.
Yeah, for just to clarify for our listeners, Alex managed to catch his youngest child pulling his shirt over his head like the old 1980s or 1990s classic Cornholio, and then sent it to John Holio and called it Des Holio, and it was Holy Awesome. No, Holly Awesome Holio. No, I can't. All right, never mind. I'm not gonna even try to push that. I thought that was a way to make that work, but there just wasn't. I needed more time. I needed more prep time. Anywho, you guys are listening to a podcast. You're here for Eternal. So we're going to talk Eternal. But real quickly, I want to mention twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ, where you can catch myself, John, and Alex all hanging out, kicking it, doing some limited, doing some constructed, just playing some Eternal and having a great time. I got to say, we have a fantastic community on Twitch, man. The last 15 or the first 15 to 20 minutes, no, maybe even 30 minutes of the last stream we did was really just a trip down memory lane, going through Commodore 64 and Super Nintendo games. And man, it was a ton of fun. I'm not even gonna lie. It was a really great trip down memory lane. Just making the argument of how all these games support or used to support 4 players, and you could still have a game night and hang out with everyone, whatnot. So it was a good time. Check us out, and we talk a lot of limited and a lot of Eternal because it's a lot of fun, and you get to catch my tournament runs on there. And I'm gonna start, thanks to the advice of John Holio yet again, do some not set reviews. We do that as well, but the go through my tournament runs that I record and kind of discuss misplays and optimal plays and things like that, and the occasional highlight reel. If you can't, like I mentioned there, you can check us out on YouTube/EternalJourney, where you can catch same thing that you would on the Twitch stream, except some YouTube exclusive content, as well as update discussions and things like that. And of course, you can catch the video version of this podcast, where all the cards we talk about, we're going to be on the screen for you, to include the photos of our Pack 1 Pick 1s and what's the plays. Let's go lead us to our final opening section, which is our shoutouts. And today we are going to welcome Night Bloom to the Jedi Order. Thank you so much for subbing to the channel on Twitch. I want to give a shout out to Extinction for coming in with the 6-month resub. They got their Darth Maul lightsaber. I gotta say, it looks really, really good. Also, Alex, I did find out that you are able to select what badge your icon or badge you wear in chat, so you are able to keep your Darth Maul lightsaber. You don't have to switch over to the Jedi Yoda.
That's exciting. You got to show me where to do that.
I will. And then finally, we had someone get promoted this weekend to the rank of Jedi Knight in the form of the Lustful Sin. Getting in with that, she actually hit 10-month resub, but I guess since she like ninja resubbed last month, we didn't catch her on stream with the 9-month resub. So yeah, we did her knighting ceremony this past weekend, which was awesome. A lot of people enjoyed it, and of course, shout out to John Holio for kind of indirectly giving me the idea for that as well. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, no problem, man.
And yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, of course, an ongoing thank you to all the supporters of the channel that just come back week after week. And I really don't know how you guys put up with me, but I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate that. All right, guys. So that's gonna do it. You guys ready for some brand new Pack One Pick One action?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, here we go, guys. So of course these are going to be cards that we've all seen before, but they are in new orders and formats because of the fact that these are in the curated packs. But these are the packs we're going to be seeing first. So starting off with the commons: Relentless Combatant, 2/3 warrior for 4 fire. Berserk, mastery 8, +2/+2. Kodosh Evangel, 2/2 Paladin Cleric for 2 Justice. Lifesteal, and then Fate, gain a Justice influence. Wormstone, 4-time Relic. When you play a spell, sacrifice Wormstone to play a 7/7 Sandworm Exhausted. Breath of Voprex is a 2 fire fast spell. Deal 5 damage to an enemy unit unless the enemy player chooses to take 5 damage instead. Seek Power, 1 factionless. Slow spell, draw a sigil of your choice from your deck. Cabal Scavenger, 1/2 Gunslinger Rogue for 1 shadow. Lifesteal, when you play a relic, Cabal Scavenger deals 1 damage to the enemy player. Cruelty, 3 primal slow spell. Play Inferiority Complex on an enemy unit, which forces them to attack, gives the unit Reckless. Decimate, deal 2 damage to it. Death from Above is the 4 primal slow spell, give a unit Flying and Berserk this turn. John, starting off with you, which one of these commons are you feeling? Or
Yeah, there's some decent comments here for sure. I like Wormstone, I like Kodosh Evangel, and I like Seek Power are my top 3. And I think for me it's between Seek Power and Wormstone more than anything. And I've done quite a bit of drafting already in this new format, and I am really eyeballing that Seek Power.
Nice.
And we'll talk about why as our main topic here today. We're going to do our first impressions on the set. So
sweet. Okay, going into the uncommons and rare, sending it over to you, Alex. Amethyst Ring, 3 shadow relic. Once per turn, you may pay 3 to deal 1 damage to the enemy player and gain 1 health. Seed of Glory is the gain Rakano influence and get a power. Depleted unless you have a sigil in your hand. Skywatch Zealot is the 0/3 cultist for 2 primal. Exalted Dragon Ally, draw a card.
Out of those uncommons, nothing really stands out to me at all. Maybe, I mean, the Seed of Glory, I've had success with Rakano, but I wouldn't want to first pick that.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of the commons, I don't know about you guys, but the Relentless Combatant has really gone up in my book with all the combat tricks and stuff, which we'll talk about.
Yes, it's playable again,
well.
for sure.
But it's not like first pickable, but I do want to like give it an honorable mention that card is scary now.
2 weeks ago, I would have never put that in a deck if I could help it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think part of that is the fact that we were dealing with the what was the primal one? I don't even remember the name of it. You know what I'm talking about? The 2/4
the Reckless one?
Yeah.
The 2/4 Reckless?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that one? I can't remember what it's called, but it got Mastery 12 or something ridiculous like that.
The biggest thing was that one had Reckless, but yeah, I actually, Combatant, I like it now as well. Our rare is Nivea Most Devoted, is the 4/4 Paladin for 4 double Argent Port. When you decimate your power, your paladins get +1/+1. Mastery 20, the enemy player loses all of their maximum power. Are either of you high on this card? Pick one.
No way.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's
yeah.
hard to cast 4-drop.
It wasn't even good in its dedicated set. So in a curated pack, I think it's even weaker.
Yeah,
This
that's a
Yeah.
good point.
this thing barely saw constructed play. Not that makes a difference, but yeah. Yeah, so I'm actually with John here.
Me too. Yeah, I agree. Seek power. It's like
I
the safe
yeah.
pick.
If I had to rate it top three, it would be Wormstone, Seek Power together, and then Kodash Evangel, and then Relentless Combatant. The Evangels just seem to do some work, and it's very debatable between this one and the Shadow one. I think being the top two. Yeah, because the charge on time is just kind of medium. The overwhelm on the primal one is pretty low, and then there's an argument for the Berserk, but you want to be in the right deck for that one. It is scary. Berserk is very scary in this format that we'll talk about here in a minute. But I think it's between Wormstone and Seek Power. And actually, I took Seek Power here because it's just the most open pick. I chose this pack because it's an example of a very medium pack where there's no card that you're just like, oh yeah, sweet, Windmill Slam. And I think sometimes it's very important to talk about that because when there's an obvious best card, I think it's very easy and people can get something away from that. But when there's not a best card, that's where I think it's a little tougher, and where I really value there is some serious power level to Wormstone, and sometimes getting out that 7/7 on like your opponent's turn 4 or something like that could be extremely powerful. At the same time, there's a chance it doesn't make your deck, and it does require some support. Versus Seek Power is 100% gonna make your deck, even if you're running 2 colors. The ability to fix your influence should you need it, and go down a power and just up your chances of needing less power in your opening hand. I think the value is very there. Like the overhead cost to it is very, very low. Let's send it over to you, Alex, before you send it over to John. Where are you at in this pack as a whole?
I'm also on the Seek Power. I mean, the Wormstone, a lot of relic synergies still going on, so it's really close. But I'm on the Seek Power as well, just staying open. That's gonna go in any deck. So it's not a very exciting pick, but it's the best pick, I think.
Yep. John?
Yep. No, I'm still on Seek Power as well.
Yep.
For all those reasons.
The one thing that I want to reiterate that we've talked about before on the show is the fact that your pack one pick one is probably the least important pack that you're gonna make the entire draft, because it's the one that has the least amount of information, right? You can easily slam a card that you think is a Windmill Slam, and then it turns out that the people passing to you are taking that same faction, so you have a harder time playing that card. So the more open your first 2 picks can be, I think the higher chances of A, them making your deck, and B, your deck being more powerful, because you don't run into that problem of like, oh man, I took this bomb legendary, but you don't get the support for it in the following packs, and then you have a hard time having the discipline to cut it. Mm-hmm. So picking Seek Power is probably one, honestly, as not exciting as it is probably one of the best pack one pick ones you can have, because the sky's the limit, right? It facilitates your splashes, it facilitates better hands. It's good.
Yep.
All right, sweet. So that's gonna do it for all our pack one pick one and all our opening stuff, which means let's go ahead and dive right into it. Which, once again, just to reiterate, they added 73. I'm gonna go with 73. That feels right. They added
no, it's 74, I think, and it's actually 69 or something like that. Maybe it's 73 and 68, but they didn't actually add the number that they said that they added.
Oh, they were counting in like the promos or whatever.
No, like as far as it, like my speculation, it's in the notes here later, but we can just mention it now. Like I think they probably had plans to add the other 5 tokens to the format, and then for whatever reason, like changed their minds or forgot to put them in or whatever. And so like they had some disconnect between their announcement and what actually came out.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Sweet. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. they added, what'd you say, 68 cards to the draft packs,
Yeah, that
and
sounds right. It was 68 or 69, something like that.
they went ahead and
68.
68. Okay, 68 added cards because I'm sure all our listeners are definitely counting. Like, wait a minute, these things they missed a card. Anywho,
I don't even know how you would figure that out. Like,
John's very meticulous in his details, which
he's
I like
smart.
about him. So so now we're, like I said, we're drafting the creative packs now, which means that instead of drafting the couple of things we'll talk about, but the main thing is that now instead of drafting your quote unquote payoffs in packs 1 and 4 and then drawing the support for them in packs 2 and 3, you're kind of doing the opposite. In some cases you could be doing the same thing depending on which factions you go on, and then sometimes you're doing the opposite where you're drafting the relics this time and then looking for the relic payoffs in packs 2 and 3. So just something to keep in mind. It's definitely more interesting, and I think it is a different format, which is nice. Sometimes when they do this, it doesn't change the format that much. It just makes it more difficult to navigate.
That's very different.
But this definitely feels like a different format. So starting off the bat, I think we're no longer in a tri and quad faction deck format. The fixing has definitely changed, as well as what archetypes are supported in packs 2 and 3, or 2 and 4, 1 and 4. So we're back to a 2-color format, which means what you're going to be looking for is locking in 2 solid colors in your deck with the occasional. I've drafted, I think I'm about 10 or 12 drafts in, and I think most of them, I think at least half my decks have been just straight 2 colors, where I might have had some cards for a splash and just felt like it wasn't worth it and got rid of them. So you're gonna be in, the 2 faction colors, or the old school like we like to, where you have a splash of a 3rd color, which is somewhere between 1 and 3 cards. I think once you start getting into 4 or 5 cards, it's no longer a splash. Another thing to consider as well is that the splash cards are only of 1 influence of your splash color. For example, splashing a Death Strike isn't really feasible to get 2 influence of your splash color. And the reason this is because fixing is a lot more difficult to pull off. They drop the strangers down to no, they're not weighted anymore, so you're not gonna see a lot of them. And just the overall fixing has been adjusted, and much like what I just mentioned, because they swapped the tri factions, the tokens are a little awkward as well now. John, what else do you got on this?
Oh, not much. Like I agree for the most part. Like yeah, it's just crazy how much changing the fixing just a little bit in the draft packs and swapping the order just completely changes the format as from how I'm feeling as well. Um, Although I did, my one of my best decks so far in the new format kind of did the opposite of what you said, which I don't recommend, but I managed to like double splash like a double influence package of good cards in a deck somehow with minimal fixing. I thought it was maximum greed, but it like really worked out, and we can kind of talk about it more a little later. But like, yeah,
Lucky.
there's some things you can do with your deck to mitigate this risk in the format, because there's just so much recursion, and they added some fixers to the format, especially in time. So you just have to be a lot more cognizant with how you draft now if you want to get greedy at all, or like even just do a light splash, because like I'm just seeing so much less fixing overall.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't know. It's interesting. I definitely have upped fixing, and I'm still at the point where I'm cutting cards from my deck, which is a good sign. But there have been a couple of times where I definitely got the round out of my deck in the last 10, 8 to 10 picks, which is a little scary. One of my drafts in particular, I was like, man, we have 2 drops. This is looking a little scary. Or no, I think we were like 12 units. And I was like, man. And then all of a sudden I got like 6 units in a row. I was like, okay, our deck looks good now. But it can definitely be scary, the way the fixing works and where you need to prioritize it. Alex, what about you?
I'm also blown away by how much just changing the weightedness of some of the cards and adding a few cards here and there, and then switching the order of it, like, totally affects the format. It's a totally different format, and it's like it's 8.5. It's like as if the new set was released almost, because it's entirely different. That's the feeling that I get. The banners and the seats are times 6. I don't know if they were before, but the strangers being not weighted really messes with the fixing for me, and also the stranger synergy. So I'm also in a mostly 2-color format mindset. I've like drafted what I thought was a 3-color deck like 3 times, where I've cut in a color entirely, because
Mm-hmm.
I figured the consistency I would get with the power was going to be better, because I didn't get the fixing that I was used to getting. So I just cut a color entirely, and it worked out. I did that with the Rakano deck that got 7 wins. So I think if you go into the draft already trying to be 2 colors instead of the greediness that we all like to do sometimes, it'll probably be better off for your win percentage, I think.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just that we like to do sometimes, it's that was practically encouraged like 2 weeks ago. Like
That's, yeah.
the enablers were just there to literally just play anything you wanted. And it's hard. It's extra hard now to be disciplined because they also added some of the most powerful 3 faction cards in the displays, and like our boy Beastmaster and like all those other 3 faction cards, right? So like while making it harder to do 3 faction, they also bait you with all your old favorites, right? So yeah, if you don't draft that often, please heed this advice. Like go into this, if you drafted once in the last format, go into your next one in this, you know, uh, midpoint set or whatever, reverse set that they did here, and just be disciplined. just keep in mind, if you wanna go a little greedy, you really got to prioritize fixing.
Yeah, and I actually think this kind of format kind of somewhat favors newer drafters, because it's easier to draft 2 colors and stick to 2 colors than try to figure out the fixing for
Yes and
three
no.
factions.
I Yeah, that's a good thought.
This particular format is a little tougher because of the fact that they still have tri-faction cards that encourage you to go 3 colors, but they're fighting each other between the curated packs and the draft pack or the set packs. So I think that
Yeah.
makes it a little more difficult, because much like what you talked about, yeah, there's some serious the old school, the original displays are very powerful. Even the weakest one, which is Vision, is still very, very applicable. So
It's better than ever in this format with all the X ones.
yeah, and so you want to take those cards and like, okay, cool, this is my tri-faction, but then you could very easily get pushed into one of the Echoes of Eternity tri-factions in packs 2 and 3. So it's that aspect of it, I think, is quite difficult for newer players. But overall, when someone starts drafting for the very first time, I think telling them like, hey, you need to prioritize this Seek Power or this random 2/2 that fixes your influence, I think that's a difficult concept for them to kind of add. They're like, yeah, but there's this really powerful card in it, why shouldn't I take that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there is that. But yeah, I guess there's another hidden note, is the fact that that's another reason I think why sometimes you have to have the discipline in this format to just cut your 3rd color, because yeah, you can open 2 Beastmasters or something that facilitates you going Honor, and then
Yeah.
and you're like, sweet, I'm the Honor deck, awesome. And then you go into packs 2 and 3, and then your primal or something isn't, or your primal or your fire isn't quite there, and then it's like, oh, but Tradition is open in packs 2 and 3, and you can pick up a wand. So it's like, and if you're not disciplined enough to get the fixing for both those cards, then all of a sudden you have to end up cutting 1 or 2 colors. So I think that definitely makes the drafting aspect of it significantly more difficult. That being said, I also think that and I don't know if we added that later on or not, so I guess I'll just bring up now, is the fact that they added some very powerful 2 influence cards, in the form of like Death Strike and Victor's Cry, and these kind of cards that
Rectifier.
yeah, Rectifier.
Lol.
Yeah, so all these cards that have double influence of a single faction, so it makes it a little bit harder to splash. I mean, granted, people of your skill level, John, and probably like Hats and Extinction and Hachi can probably facilitate slightly greedier decks like that, but I think it's definitely a new format and something that is going to be very interesting to navigate. That being said, though, if you do draft that solid 2-color deck like what Alex was talking about, you feel really good. Like when you can just, granted, a perfect split of 9 and 9 sigils is still not great, because you can kind of still get stuck thanks to the randomization, but feels kind of good, when you don't have to sit there and like work out. Okay, I have 8 of this source, 6 of this source. Where does the curve feel? So yeah. So going into the trifactions, the original trifactions are somewhat supported, i.e., they're still, we still have Edge, we still have Wand, we still have all those tricolor cards in the pack, in the Echoes packs. But they are definitely not supported in packs 1 and 4. And the obvious awkward part of that is that, and you mentioned, actually, I'll just let you talk about it because, yeah, I was going to say the tokens also make it a little
Yeah.
awkward. So go ahead and break that down for us, John.
Well, we already mentioned it a minute ago, but like, yeah, I was going to talk about that here. Like, it seems like they planned on releasing those tokens with, with those colors, with some additional fixing supported, but they didn't actually end up including those for whatever reason in the format. So the other thing that is actually supported, though, luckily, is like those strategies of that format. Like, I love that draft format. Like, it's probably my favorite personally, because that's kind of when I started playing, and I just loved the explosive nature of some of those decks and stuff. But like, yeah, so Relics Matters was already kind of supported, and now it like even more is. That was like the Aurelian thing back then. And then, we already kind of mentioned Beastmaster, and Ixton is like, it's like a renown slash, it's like just a very like aggressive combat trick oriented deck. And boy, did they support, do they support that again now? So yeah, like they didn't really get there with the fixing for those. I mean, you can try and force that and get there and maybe get lucky with the packs, but it's not guaranteed anymore.
Just
but yeah, like,
just for clarification purposes, the John specifically means the tokens for the original displays. So, for example, there is the display of ambition that you can pick up, which is Fire, Justice, and Shadow, but you won't see the token for it. You'll only see the token for the Echoes of Eternity trifactions.
Right, like the new supported ones, Tradition and Creation, and those.
That being said, it's still perfectly okay to take a token with for only 2 of your colors. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because those are the only tokens available if you're in one of these old trifactions anyway. So, yeah, you'll probably end up with at least 1 or 2, only double on tokens if you're doing an old trifaction deck. So,
okay, moving on. Time is still really good. Yeah, Time is great. It still has powerhouse cards. It got even better cards, and Time is great.
Yeah, they nerfed, some of our draft favorites in Time, right? Like Rectifier and Distillation, and I don't think Time got off easy overall in the format for sure. And they added in these, in the cards they added to the curated pool, like they added some great time cards and some time fixing cards, and like so they just shorted up even better. I feel like so. Yeah, like you no longer want to run 2 or 3 distillations in your deck, and you're no longer splashing 5 rectifiers in your Rakano deck, but those cards are still very good and very playable. And Time is still, I think, the best faction overall, especially as like a baseline.
Yeah, which perfect segue into the next card we're going to talk about, which Rectifier, and it's a real shame. Just because I really do feel the nerf to Rectifier was, I mean, don't get me wrong, Rectifier was pretty great in draft, but you got used to it, right? And it was just a card that was fun to play around. I think it created some very interesting interactions. And I think it's even more of a decision maker here because they added some very solid 3/3s for 3 in the curated packs. So I think that makes the argument for Rectifier a little bit more interesting, but we're definitely feeling the nerf, essentially the limited players paying for the sins of constructed, which is a bit of a bummer, but that's the world we live in. Before I jump into it though, Alex, you got a bunch of notes on this one, so I'll let you take the Rectifier discussion note.
No, I mean on the Rectifier, it's for me the biggest beef that I have is now that it's pretty much a useless blocker other than just a little speed bump, because it can't kill things with 2 health, and you can't like attack with, you used to be able to attack with it and be like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna block it or are you gonna take 2? And now it's like just 1. You can take 1 so much more than you could take 2. So I think like that's part of what John was saying, where it's like it took, there was like playing around it, or that was Jedi, whoever was saying that. But yeah, it's like it took out some of the fun for us limited players. It was ruined by the constructed people, but that's okay. And then no, that's pretty much it though with the Rectifier.
Yeah, no,
The,
Yeah,
that's a great
the
it
point.
was a
Shadows,
dominant card though.
it was.
I mean, it also helped keep the format in check, though, right? With corrupted
Hmm.
cards and flyers and stuff. I think it was a good safety valve, right? And I like.
Yeah, I came into the format coming out, kind of being off of it already because of Grodov's favored, but that card did rectifier stuff and also then like pretty quickly could close out a game. And like, so I mean, rectifier got a bad rap just to start off because of that, I think. But I think you're absolutely right. Like after playing with it for a while, like I definitely wasn't calling for nerfs for it in draft. No, like maybe at the beginning of the format I was, and they weren't deserved, right? So.
It's like no longer splashable now too. It's like just
Mhm.
you have to be in time, but it's still a great card for the effect. I mean, that's the removal spell.
But
But
like
still,
Jedi said, there's more good 3-drops contending for that spot now too.
yeah, that's true. Actually, I've noticed that as well.
All right, next hot take that we have. This is something that you could have done in the tail end of the previous format. I feel because they adjusted the creative packs at some point, but I finally was on both the receiving end and the dishing out end of this, and this is I feel so good when this happens. Waystone Gate on turn 3, and then Consuming Grade, which is Waystone Gate is the 3-cost relic. You could pay 3 to pull any sigil you like from your deck upon the 3rd activation, or should it be destroyed on your turn, you get an 8/8 giant. Consuming Greed is the 4-cost shadow 2/1 flying unit, and then when it comes into play, you can destroy your own relic, and if you do, you get a 2-cost. That's very important. 2-cost 6/4. Yeah. So if you go turn 3 Waystone Gate into turn 4 Consuming Greed, eat your Waystone Gate, and add an 8/8 and a 6/2 or 6/4 to the board, you're feeling pretty darn good.
You're doing it, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, John. Yeah, my bad. You wrote that in there. It was already in the format. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. They updated. How long ago? Like a month ago, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
even
that was in
remember.
the recent edition exactly when they they kind of did a draft pack update when they did one of those campaign releases about
Oh
a
yeah,
month or
yeah.
so
There you go.
ago.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was times 6 before though.
I'm not sure either, but I had like for me the issue was never not like once they added it, I could always get greeds if I wanted to. The issue for me was always just getting bottled storms and getting waystone gates for your deck more than anything. So
Yeah. I think the jig is up. Like, there's so many draft streamers now, and then Farming Eternal, and then us. I very rarely. I think if I ever get past a Waystone Gate, it's because they took the rare. Honestly, um, I think there was one draft I did recently where I felt like I got one pretty late, and I mean like pretty late. Pick 7 or 8. I was
so
like, how in the heck?
yeah.
So, but John, you have
Yeah.
one other thing to go with this kind of synergy combo, and go ahead and
Yeah,
talk about it.
I could also mention before I do this, the synergy that like a lot of people may not know about with Aramot's Machinations, which is already just a very great, powerful card to be playing in any Xenon deck in the format. But the 6/4 that is made by Consuming Greed is actually a 2-drop. So that is like something that can be machinated. Just FYI, if you're not aware of that.
Yeah.
Just a little tip. But yeah, the new addition to this kind of same combo in the draft packs is actually Lethrai Lobotomy, which is far better than it ever was, like in the old like Defiance format, for example, because of Gate and Bottled Storm in particular. That's unfortunately like that's usually not the play you're wanting to make on turn 4. Like Consuming Greed is a better tempo turn 4 play, obviously, because the flyer can attack too, and that's some great removal in a removal light format. And so like that's more for later in the game if you happen to get those pieces kind of later in the game, generally speaking, or you might have some other things sacrificed. But it is there if you just feel like it's gonna blow your opponent out so fast that it's worth just going for either way.
Lethrai Lobotomy, the 1 shadow, sacrifice a relic to destroy an enemy unit, right?
Yep.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Sorry, I
No, I was
skipped that
making
part.
sure I had it. It's an enemy unit, I think for sure. But yeah, and I think it's ×6 because I'm seeing that card a lot as well.
It's an uncommon though, right?
Yeah, so you don't see it as much, but even the pushed uncommons,
Mm-hmm.
you see them more. You
Well, I
know.
mean, it's a pretty specific card though, too. Like, I think you're gonna see a lot of those because you're gonna want to have relics. Like, if the only relic you have in your deck is Wand, you're not gonna want Lobotomy. So I think that's one
No,
of the
for many
I
reasons.
think that's one of the cards you're gonna end up seeing a lot of is just because of the fact that it's a very niche card. There's a specific deck that wants it, and that's it. So, but Alex, go
Yeah, but
ahead.
again, I don't mind playing one of those. Even if I don't have like the combo, it's still like there's enough relics that are good enough on their own, and then maybe just good at it for a time, and then you are kind of done with them. And yeah, it's a pretty good card just in draft because of the removal aspect.
Yeah, like Eternity Core. You use it, and then once you
Mm-hmm.
get like 8 or 9 power, you don't need it anymore. You can
Exactly.
lobotomy it. Yep, I dig
And
it.
then it is ×6. I just looked that up just to confirm. But yeah,
Thanks.
Okay, Alex, go into our next one, buddy.
let's see here. So another thing in this format, which has become very apparent very quickly, is combat tricks are back. Combat is a very scary place right now. You have draw strength and finest hour, both ×6 weighted spells, and you're seeing a lot of those. It's really easy to leave up 1 power, and spiteful strike is also ×6. I know that's an uncommon, but you see it a lot. And people are going to pass me those. I'm going to take them and make a really low to the ground aggro deck. So yeah, aggro's back, I think, because of that. I don't know what you guys think though.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
combat tricks are definitely. It's funny because we just came off a format where combat tricks were so minimal, right? You saw the occasional rampage or something like that, but overall, combat tricks were not quite there. And yeah, you mentioned all three of those are very powerful cards. We already know how powerful draw strength can be, especially later in those stalled board states. It just gets very scary. Spiteful Strike is absolutely backbreaking, and Finest Hour is just very powerful. It's good on defense, good on offense. We have some Berserk units in the format. We have double damage units in the format that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah, I think it's definitely making a switch. There's a little bit, we got once again Death Strike is fast speed removal. There's still Seer in the format, but overall, I think and we got Cut Ties as well, but obviously Cut Ties is a little bit harder to leave up or easier to kind of see at some point. So yeah, it's definitely a meta shift, and I like it. I like it.
I seriously think Direwolf went down the line and said, "Is this a combat trick?" Yes, ×6.
It
Because
seems that way.
they're all seriously they're all ×6. Omri's Choice, like the 4 to ready the unit and give it +3/+3. It's back in the draft packs. I forget what that card is called, but that's also
High alert?
×6. High alert, yeah.
Yeah, that's my note, right? The next note.
Oh, is that the next note? My bad, dude. I stole your thunder. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, yeah. Finest hour and high alert, and
Oh, there
like
you go.
literally, well, you're already mentioning like literally every combat trick. It seems like
Yep. And Victor's Cry is just awesome as well.
that's a big one.
Yep.
Like Rampage is still ×6.
It was weird because in one of the previous formats, I feel like some people weren't high on it for some reason. I don't remember why, but I always was. Anywho, High Alert is, or not High Alert, I'm sorry. Victor's Cry is a 4 Justice fast spell. Give a unit +5/+5, and then
That's an uncommon,
and then
right?
it's
Uncommon.
yes, and then it's revenge. So you get to do it again, not necessarily on your own terms, but you still get to do it again. Yeah, that card's really busted. We'll talk about it in a minute. Oh well, shoot. I guess that's my next note. My bad. That's funny. Yeah, when we did the notes, like interjecting them in between each other is interesting. I think it leads for a dynamic podcast. I dig it. But yeah, the next one is because of all of these tricks, things like double damage and berserk and overwhelm are so much more frightening that I just led to. I didn't realize it was our very next note. But yeah, case in point, like we were talking about the berserker from earlier, the relentless combatant, that 2/3 plus a mastery to get bigger. When your opponent swings in with that and they hit the Berserk to essentially attack twice, and they have open power, you really have to figure out how bad or what's the worst case scenario, because a Victor's Cry all of a sudden, and this thing can do some serious damage. The touch of Force is still in the format to give things double damage. There's various Berserk units. There's, to a lesser extent, there's also Death from Above. They could give a unit flying and double damage, or I'm sorry, and Berserk, as well as Dive Bomb is still in it. So if your opponent has a Berserk unit, they can pump it and then give it Dive Bomb and swing in the air. Like,
Just levitate.
yeah, there you go. It's
Love levitate.
Yeah, it's really scary. Like, it's very scary, where you really have to consider your blocks in some of these more utility based units now, because of the fact that spoiler alert, the last deck I drafted was a very low to the ground, to the point where I think my only 4s were combat tricks. I think I had 2 units at 4, everything else was 2s and 3s, and my combat tricks were 4s in the form of like Victor's Cries. And I was winning games off of the back of like, cool, you left back 1 blocker, I'm gonna ace space, and then you didn't block my Berserk unit, or it just, oh man, it's really scary.
An Echoes card that got a lot better because of this is like Markmaker, because before I felt like that was mostly just good on big like time units for the most part, like Giants and Corpse Blooms, but now like Markmakering any of these cheap, good Berserk aggressive units that we're kind of talking about, like, just helps push all that damage because of the overwhelm and the slight buff. And like you just mentioned, like double damage is particularly just scary in this format. It is now just possible to die out of nowhere so easily. I've witnessed on people's streams, I've had it happen to me, I've had it happen to my friend I was watching, where you're at like 19 health or like 22 health, something like that, like a comfortable, what anyone would say is a comfortable life total, and they're attacking with like a 1/2 double damage or something like innocuous, or maybe like a 2/2 Berserk, and you're like, whatever. I mean, okay, the Berserk is a worse example, because anytime somebody Berserks their Berserk, something, like the jig is up. But no, just like a 1/2, like, it's like a free attack this turn or something. You're like, yeah, I'll let it in. Oops, you died. Like, opponent had 3 finest hours or what, whatever. Like, you gotta really respect that free attack from a double damage unit now. Like, really respect that. Be careful not to just oops, I died out there.
Yep. Draw strength, that's a really big one as well.
It's another boosted one.
One power +4 +4 +8 sometimes.
Yeah, and so not only did they boost the tricks like we've been talking about, but they also boosted some of these great units like Rusty, Rusty Grenamotive, Steel-Eyed Pistolier. Those are boosted, and then they also boosted other great cards for this strategy like Oathbook. Yeah, we just mentioned Draw Strength. Yeah, like Alex said, aggro is just back in a huge way right now.
Rusty Grenamotive is the 2/4 Berserk for 3 fire. That's a Grenadin, and then every time it attacks, you get +1 power for that turn. So, and it has Berserk, so it could ramp you as well. It's a very strong card. And then Pistolier is 3/3 for, it's double justice, right?
Just single justice.
Yeah, okay.
3/3 for 3.
Yep. So there you go. Another 3/3 for 3, and then it has Renowned. It gets double damage for that turn. So that one's a very scary one to block as well, or let through. You typically always, just honestly as a rule of thumb, I always try to block it if I can afford to, because I mean, yeah, the turn you don't block it is the turn it gets over or double damage and just gets smashed. But very good point, John, on that. The Markmaker, we already knew it was a good card, but it's definitely gotten a lot better with that overwhelm. So chump blocking is no longer an option.
And there's more renown now too, and it'll trigger the renown.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, next one's yours, John.
Oh, so yeah. Just some random thing I've noticed is like Learned Herbalist. It's like a 2-time 2/2 for 2 unit that when on summon you can discard a card from your hand and get a Secret Pages, which is a 3-cost fast spell, 3 in a time that lets you play any sigil from your deck. So it's like a fixing spell. So this is like a fixing card, right? But Herbalist is so good, because not just for that, because fixing is less, because time is great, like all those reasons, but there's so much recursion in this format unit recursion, turn back time, like weapon recursion, like so much recursion in this format that if you have like Herbalist and your Greedy Splash in your opening hand, like you just pitch it. It's so good. It's like, oh, I can't play this. Normally it'd be stuck in your hand. You just put it in your void for like safekeeping for later, because obviously your deck has at least one way to recur it, right? Like, what deck doesn't this day and age in this format? So yeah, no, Learned Herbalist is just so good right now, I think, because of that.
I like that point as far as having the recursion in your deck, so you don't feel as bad pitching your top end essentially.
I mean, yeah, super good point, because it's like that's kind of a mini level up. You're like, no, I don't want to get rid of the best card in my deck, but you might have recursion for it, so it's kind of like counterintuitive in a way. You just gotta
Yeah,
gotta
so
plan.
like that in a roundabout way, that's like a way to mitigate the lack of great fixing in the format, is to have like pressure valves. Like, well, let's build in ways in the deck to where I'm not punished for having this uncastable card in my hand.
I like it.
Just to piggyback off of all the recursion you were talking about, I think that also a card that I was pretty medium on, I'm slightly higher on it, especially after 2 drafts ago, is the Contaminating Ritual, which is the 1 cost shadow fast spell, give a unit +1 attack, flying, and
Yes.
lifesteal, and then sack it at the end of turn. I think with all the recursion, this card has definitely increased in value. I don't think it's a windmill slam. I don't think you're running 2 of them. I think you really only just want 1. But this card definitely won me some games and definitely saved me from dying some games. And it was all because I
I
had the
agree.
recursion, especially with Triumphant Return. Right? You give any medium unit this, you get him
Mm-hmm.
for attack, or you surprise block one of their flyers. You lose the unit, but then you Triumphant Return it. So now it gets technically across 2 spells, it gets a +3, +2 flying and lifesteal. That's pretty darn good.
I mean, Immortalize is just as good, I think, giving Exalted with these
Oh yeah, yeah.
wonderful battle skills. Like, yeah, no, I agree. Like, I played that in a deck for the first time this week, and it was like a 7-0 deck. So I agree. Like, that card got a lot better right now too. It just seems like the recursion is more plentiful.
Next one, still kind of staying on that fixing train. We have the Interloper nerf. I think it's legit, and I'll tell you why. Yes, I know people play Interloper for the fixing. I 100% agree. I think Interloper is still completely flying in your decks. I still put it in my decks, but the fact that it no longer offers a second chump block, I think is actually pretty legit in a world of giants and sandworms and corpse blooms and things like that. And berserk units, right? I think the nerf is pretty darn legit. John, you have some more notes on this. Go ahead and elaborate.
Yeah, like that was my initial impression too. Like, I figured I was already kind of low on him in general and barely ever played him in my draft decks in the previous Echoes formats. But I find myself looking at him more now than ever, because I'm not seeing the usual 2 faction fixing strangers, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, he's still also on top of that does the job of getting 2 stranger enter the battlefield triggers, which, if in some cases that's relevant for your deck. So that's another reason to still look at him. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, he can't attack for free as often to get one of those attack triggers. He can't block 1x attackers anymore, and you can't use that shade as a chump blocker after you already chump with the initial body. So yeah, I mean, it did get a lot worse, but because of the shift in the packs and the meta, it's still about as played or as picked for me personally. What about you, Alex?
It's probably actually gone up for the fixing purposes. You know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Alex?
I agree with both points in the fact that now it's a much worse blocker. You can't even chump, like you said. But the fixing is so hard to come by that's actually gone up for that. So I think it's like a little bit more valuable, even though it's a worse unit, which is kind of weird. But only if I'm in more than 2 colors do I really even need it or want to play it. So that's my take on that guy at this point.
Yeah, and John glanced
All
over
right.
it very quickly, but I think it was a very good point as well, is the fact that because it's 1 health now, it's not a free attack either to trigger stranger effects and things like that. It's anything can block it and kill it. So
Right. It's just a straight up sacrificial attack now, whereas
Yeah,
before it was
there was like a surprisingly high number of scenarios where that guy could attack for free. Like I don't know, like I was surprised by that. Like as far as how I figured the games would play out before I played the format versus actual experience.
yeah, and it stopped a lot of all the token generators, right? All the little 1/1
Hmm.
cultists and things like that. It did a decent job of stopping it. So the nerf is definitely legit. John, take us into our next one.
Yeah, so one way to mitigate that pain that you're feeling from that nerf we just talked about, and also the rectifier nerf and things like that, is Horn of Plenty is so good right now. With all those nerfs to those corrupted units we just talked about, and it's also 6 times boosted. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing a ton of Horn of Plenties in my drafts. If I'm in time, I'm not having problems picking them up if I want one. Uh, and even though it's 6 times boosted, I still think there's no shame in prioritizing that first one because it's just such a good draft card. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, no, I've noticed the same thing. I have a little note in here because I have 3 in a pool right now, and I cut one of them, and I think 2 is the sweet spot for Horn of Plenty. What do you guys think?
I think that's correct.
Yep, same thing. I had that exact same scenario where I had 3. I think when they first came out, the format, there could have been an argument for a third one. There could have been, but in this one, and even then, I probably still cut the third one if I ever got there. But yeah, I did the exact same thing when before I realized they were weighted, and it just felt like people were passing them. I picked up 3 or 4, and I was like, because it's still, you need to have a board state for it to be effective, right? If not, you're
Hmm.
still kind of taking your turn 5 off or doing nothing. It's pretty hard to do 2 spells in one turn when it costs 5. And if you only have 1 unit in play, things like that, it doesn't do anything. So you definitely don't want to just spend 2 or 3 turns just playing them. I think 2 is a good spot for it. And much like what we've talked about previously already, is the fact that because they're boosted and they're so kind of, there's a critical mass of them you want in your deck, or a limit, I should say, that you're gonna definitely see these. I've seen some of these go pretty late as well.
It's like it's an amazing relic to go with the relic synergies that care how big the relic is.
Expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Yeah, because it's like boosting your team and then making your Yetis do 5 damage,
Hmm.
or making your Rage Heart Paladin like insanely big. So
Another reason, though, that you're not playing, maybe even that second one is it actually has competition in this format between, Sorcerer's Wand and like Siege Provisions, which is kind of like a more, it's like a curve, a curve conscience, a curve, you know what I mean? Like, kind of addendum to Horn of Plenty. It's nice to have kind of both in your deck, things like that. So yeah, it's actually got competition at the common level.
Yeah, speaking of Siege of Provisions, I'm actually interested to see where that thing's gonna fall in this format, because it's a repeatable combat trick. I mean, they see it coming, but it's still pretty powerful. And
I think it's gotten possibly better because of like for so many reasons, like aggro in general got seemingly better. I think it's still fantastic, and I still think 2 is probably a good number of those two, or like 1 and 1 for a horn and a provisions or something.
yeah,
yeah, it just wins games.
Hmm.
yep. Uh,
So I also feel like this format has more removal like options overall, and maybe just more by the numbers, but like maybe just less silence going around. How do you guys feel about that?
the
It's like, go ahead.
Nah, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it feels like the combat tricks are the removal, kind of, because
Yeah, that might be just why I'm feeling that way.
Yeah.
you're like there's a lot more of interaction going on in combat, so it kind of feels like there's removal, maybe because
Mm.
the removal is about the same. The spells, it seems like to me.
I mean, they did add a couple new options, but I don't think they're boosted or anything
Yeah, no, the
like
death,
Slay.
yeah, Deathstrike and Slay are absolutely amazing. Like they are the premium level of removal that you want to see. Slay just being the 3 cost slow speed, 3 Argent Port, just kill the unit. Period. It's just like you can't ask for anything better in a limited format. And then you also have Deathstrike, which is 4 Shadow, fast speed kill unit, which is even better because now you can bait combat tricks and things like that, and you feel less bad about leaving up power. So I think those are great. I think they're windmill slams whenever you can take them, because that's just the cleanest removal you can look for in limited, and it deals with a lot of big units, man, a lot of big units, and it could save you sometimes if opponent does want to go all in on a really good attack or something like we've been talking about right now. So yeah, I agree with Alex. I think that's a very good point. I think the fact that there's more combat tricks and we just came from a format with less makes it feel like there's more removal. Which, you know, they added cards, but yeah, I think and feeding time. Feeding time is back, which is a nice clean way of dealing with. It does two things. One, it deals with units that have entomb triggers like the corrupted and stuff like that, but it also mitigates some of the recursion, right? Like I think the Xenon decks are very strong right now with Triumph and Return, Immortalize, and Machinations, which we've had, but I don't know, it just, with all these new battle skilled units in play and stuff and ways to modify units, being able to just get rid of that unit altogether and not have to worry about it coming back can be very powerful. So yeah, those are the three. I think definitely adds some more spice to the format, which I've noticed already. I feel a little less heartbroken when my opponents play Corpse Booms and Giants on their side of the board. Don't get me wrong, they're still great units and they're still game enders, but the fact that there's more answers to them in the format makes me feel a little better about it.
Yeah, I had a Pistolier took out a 10-10 Bodhi and Rocks with a little help.
Oh, I saw that. That was so cool.
So it's like you just said, the big things you can get there with the combat tricks and fight them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you guys both have some drafts under your belts already. Like, Alex, do you have a favorite, you know, new archetype in the format, or a favorite new duo or trifaction deck, or like any new strategy or anything? Like, what's your you know, flavor of the week?
Like, I'm really focusing on trying to be two colors and as low to the ground as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it leads me into fire, time, and like not shadow, but fire, time, and justice combos thereof, like Rakana, Praxis. I've even tried Skycrag, which could have worked out better, but it did not work out so well. But I'm having a lot of fun playing those. It's like back to basics with the drafting, so you can like get under your opponents if they're dirtling, and you can just I attacked you with a bunch of units and you didn't do anything, so you're dead.
Yeah, I've been shrugging off more Waystone gates than a few weeks ago. That's for sure. What about you, Jedi? What's your favorite new thing to do?
Man, I actually was about to think about that because I was almost going to Windmill Slam Rakano, but now that I think about it, I don't know if it's just the way that I try to stay open or kind of see what's up, but like I've actually had a pretty diverse set of decks in this format. I gotta admit, my more quote unquote fun decks that I've tried to do for a little bit more entertainment value on streams and stuff haven't, as per SOP, honestly, haven't done as well. I had a pretty sick kind of recursion deck that Stone Scar that revolved around Reformation and Waystone Gate, and I even had a Shrine, and it got there a couple times, but it just didn't go the distance. But I had a sick Combre deck that just splashed Primal for 2 wands that did really well. I had that low to the ground Rakano deck that did really well, and then I had a pretty busted Xenon deck that was all recursion and shenanigans and just great units that did very well as also. So yeah, right now I haven't locked one in, sadly. I mean, slight spoiler, you and I are both very high on both Display of Honor and Beastmaster, which are mixed in colors. And oh man, I've seen a couple of Beastmasters and I just wasn't nowhere near being able to play them. So it's
I'm waiting. I'm looking to do that. Like I will do that.
I've already forced it. I couldn't help it.
I know. I almost feel like it's correct to I think I'm just gonna start forcing it. Like either forcing Rakano or Stone or Skycrag, and just like, come on, get there, Because oh god,
yeah,
it feels that card. It just both those cards.
They're both
feel
good.
So good.
And like I don't know, like I think this kind of worked for me back in Defiance too, right? Like I just like I want to be Ixen, I want to be Ixen, yeah. And I'd kind of force it sometimes, but it's like you don't really care whether you're like, yeah, like you just said, Rakano, Skycrag. Like at the end, by the time you get done with your draft, as long as like two of those three were mostly open, you'll have a deck and it'll be playable because there's just like that in that format. There's just so many options up and down the curve between the units and the tricks for that strat. Like, and the only thing I'm missing, I think, is changey stick.
Or Mighty Strikes. Oh,
Yeah, and my yeah. Then I would just abandon time and just say, Ixten OP.
the
Just go back into the Mighty Strikes and the bottoms up win cons. So
I think Huru is probably a little bit harder to start off with. I haven't really seen a lot of. I can't remember in any of my drafts seeing kind of like a Huru feel to it, if that makes sense. That just kind of falls under that purpose unseen kind of build that we're not particularly high on. I still don't think it's a particularly solid build either. It's gotten the factions have gotten a little bit of support, but I just haven't seen like, yeah, all right, we're Huru guys, you know what I mean? I think
one of my drafts was like that actually, but yeah, not the other kind of Ixten-ish drafts for me.
But
Just
yeah,
one.
I think you're right. I think off stream, I'm just gonna force it. Like do the stuff we don't preach on the podcast. It's just like that's it. I'm forcing Beastmaster. Did I get one or did I not?
Yep.
I cried for that the Rakano deck that I was talking about because actually actually that Rakano deck I didn't have a splash. I straight up knew I was Rakano because we were getting past like such good Rakano that I was like, oh yeah. And we didn't see a Beastmaster, but we did see a pack 4 pick 3 honor display of honor, and I wanted to slam it so bad, but I'm like, man, this deck just doesn't really want the splash.
It's too clean. Yeah, you didn't need it. That deck was clean. This discussion also reminds me, my boy Glacier Shaper is back, and he is like just like I always liked him in those Ixen decks in Defiance, but he's just better than ever because of these new Echoes cards, like the bond like spells, like Thunder of Winds and Nahid's Dank card draw.
Oh man, yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right because there were a couple of drafts where I was looking, I was like, "What Glacier Shaper's back in here? This card is so good." And
yes,
it just didn't really, because those both Thunder of Wings and Nahid's Distillation are both cards that people take highly. Though I'm seeing a lot more Thunder of Wings getting passed to people. I had 3 in a deck at one point, and I think it was earlier today. Batteries was doing a draft, and he got 3 Thunder of Wings.
I saw that
like,
actually.
I was like, that's insane. I'm like, do people not realize how good this card is?
Yeah.
Typically,
no, I was in a draft where I wasn't even in Primal, where people were passing like 2 or 3 of these Glacier Shapers got passed to me, but I was just so far from it. I didn't want to try and splash because of all the lack of fixing we've talked about. But
can you break down Glacier Shaper for our listeners, please?
Yeah, what is he? I don't have him up, but I think he's a
2/4
3.
for 3.
Yeah, right, and 1 primal unit, and he's got Renown, where like he makes a glacier, like a walking glacier. I think is the name of the unit, but its attack and health is the cost of whatever you use to do the Renown trigger. So like Thunder of Winds is a 5 cost, and the Heed's Heed's Distillation is a 7 cost. So you get a big old guy to go with your amazing, very game-winning card that you're already playing, along with your great rate, good statted, solid unit in Glacier Shaper. Like it's all just so juicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chicka chicka. Dope,
Right?
dope. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, so Alex, do you have any last hot takes you want to talk about in our first impressions?
So I just confirmed it because I was noticing that I was used to be able to get 2 disjunctions in decks to deal with relics, and now it's just ×1, and even decay is just 1. So
that's worth talking about for sure. Good point.
Relic removal is harder to come by. So if you see a disjunction, you might want to jump on it if you like that card.
That probably ups Ruin as well.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, right, like in those draft packs, it would have been, pick 2. I'd been looking at that Horn of Plenty and that disjunction, and I'd go easy Horn. I'll get a disjunction later. It is the exact opposite now, because of the the boosted rate of these cards in the packs and their importance in the format, right? So it's bizarro world. Now when you look at that exact pick, it's you might prioritize that disjunction first because it is just much rarer and it's still such a good effect in the meta.
The one last thing that actually brings up to mind too is that I think now it's more important than ever because of the fact that you're seeing these like alternate supported tri-factions to when you're looking at a medium to low pick for your deck, really kind of eyeball it. And if you think that card's not going to make your deck or not really helping improve your deck, go ahead and try to take a token if you can, because there is still a chance where you can get those late game tri-faction or late draft tri-faction cards. And, just kind of being proactive about your fixing for it can facilitate playing those cards, essentially. It's still a little sketchy, I think, taking the displays a little early. That being said, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to pass up a display of Ambition or Honor, because I think both of those they're all good, but I think those two are extremely busted and limited. But yeah, just something to think about is really identify those random picks where you're like, hey, do I really want to take like the C- for my deck, or can I take a token that may or may not, if they're both gonna maybe make your deck, maybe not. I think potentially leaning towards the fixing could lead you to having access to better cards. All right, well, that's gonna do it for our first impressions, guys. I hope you got something out of it. And it's so funny too, because I think it's a meta shift right now of how we're getting all these tricks and things like that. And I think eventually we're going to see less finest hours getting passed because people are going to be learning the format. But, and that's the double-edged sword of putting all this content out there, is that we're telling people how we're getting better, so they're getting better. So inherently we're going to get like slightly worse. I think all the consistent drafters all saw or felt that the previous format was getting very difficult to get 7 wins in, because just everyone knew how to draft and how to play around cards. So it got very competitive, I feel. So it's fun and refreshing to be in a new format.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so our what's the play this week is another huge board state. Don't know why I do this to myself, but there's a lot going on here, and those are the ones I like to bring on the show to discuss so we can all get better together. And these really intricate board states, when you're on a timer, you have to make the call, much like what happened last week, where we were all like, yeah, well, I have 15 minutes to figure out the decision, here's my line. But sometimes it's good to go back and kind of identify things like that, so you can create like heuristics and things like that help you shortcut on timing. So let me go through this debacle as best as I can. I do encourage you to check it out on YouTube, or of course now you can start to see these what's the plays in article format on Eternal Warcry, so be looking on the lookout for those. They're going to be a little behind because I want to have a cushion for our writers to make sure we can get these out weekly, but it's if you're a more visual person, that's something else to check out as well. Our opponent is on Menace, 8 power. They have 5. They have Fire, Primal, Shadow. We are on Tradition, which is Time, Justice, Primal. We are 5 of 9 power on our turn. Our opponent is at 27. We are at 8. So we are clearly the quote-unquote control player, defensive player at this point. We have a Horn of Plenty, as well as 2 wands.
Oh.
We have 2 wands.
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't watch this. This was a very interesting game.
I may have. I didn't remember this one. Sorry.
Actually, you know what? I won't lie. This was the game that I think we actually should have lost, but our opponent was very conservative in their attacks, and so we had the cushion to get there. So
Okay.
we ended up winning this game. But like I said, I think our opponent gave us. I think we had 2 chances of losing the game if our opponent was a little more aggressive, because at one point we did drop down to like 3 life. So anywho,
maybe they just were playing around something. They had you on, maybe a Biting Winds or something that you didn't actually have, or who knows.
Yeah, could have been. So yeah, once again, our relics are Horn of Plenty and Double Wand.
Sorcerer's Wand.
Sorcerer's Wand, yeah, thank you. And for those that don't know, you could pay 2 to either stun an enemy unit, draw a card, or give your entire board a +1/+1.
Okay.
On our opponent's side of the board, they have So this is a little awkward. All right, so let me start off with the fact that they have Vile Collaborator, which is the 2/3 that gives your dragons +1/+1 and lifesteal. So that's gonna explain why their 2 dragons are the way they are. They have the 2/1 Amethyst Alkalite, the 1/4 Scaly Gruon, a silenced 1/5 Griffin, Plague Griffin, a 2/2 Berserk Evangel, and then they have 2 and at the current moment stunned. Thanks to our double wands, the Drake, I forgot what it's called now. The one
I've literally never played one of these Drakes, so
Yeah, me
I
either.
I can't help you with the name. I always ignore it.
Anywho, it's the 1/4 flying Drake that gives you +1 spell damage,
Mm-hmm.
and then when it hits its mastery of 3, it gets an additional spell damage. So one of them did hit their mastery, and one of them did not. So take it for its worth. And because of the Vile Collaborator, they are both 2/5 life-stealing flyers. We have an 8/7 Rodolph's Favored, 2 2/2 Flying Humbugs, and a 5/5 Intrepid Longhorn. Once again, remember we do have Horn of Plenty in play, so that's why that's happening. In our hand, our opponent has 1 card in hand with 8 power open. And I'm gonna go ahead and just say that we've played a couple turns, and actually I have no idea. I don't remember at this point if we identified a pause or not.
Mm-hmm.
But we also haven't been in a position to attack. Just take that for what it's worth. So there's still access to, like, for example, Lightning Strike and Biting Winds. In our hand, we have a Wind Conjuring, which is the Justice Conjuring card. +4/+4. Refresh a unit, give it endurance, and yeah, you Windvoke. We have a Dive Bomb for Justice +1/+4. Give 2 units, +1/+4 and flying until end of turn. And then the Sandbinder Sentinel, which I really appreciate this card. This is a 5x Sentinel. That's a 5/7, and I'm not sure, is that from the Horn of Plenty or is that from a Warcry?
No, it's in your hand, so
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it must have been a Warcry. Oh no, Draw Strength, that's what it was. Okay, that makes
there
sense.
you go.
Yeah, you know how sometimes, like, in your void, things is still kind of recognized, so that's why I was like, wait, yes. So it got Draw Strength. That's why it's a 5/7. It's typically a 4/6. When it comes into play, you play a Sandbind Curse on an enemy unit, which removes its flying ability. So yeah, very interesting board today. I hope you guys were able to somewhat keep up with that. We normally start off with you, John, so this time let's send it over to Alex first. What do you think, Alex?
I mean, this is pretty complicated board state here. So we'll potentially talk about this in an upcoming episode. It's like, where do you get aggressive? You have 2 wands out. Part of me wants to attack with the 8/7. I know you're only at 8, but part of me wants to just attack with 8/7 and see what the opponent does. And if they, like, throw their whole team at blocking it, they probably just take it, but then you could just drop the 5/7, and that's a comparable blocker. You could have maybe just stunned one of the flyers and played the Sandbinder and then drawn a card instead. But I think the safest thing would be to just slowly pick away, like attack with maybe one of your flyers, because you're at 8. So you don't want to be in, like, jeopardy of, like, losing to, like, a Fire Conjuring or something like that. So I think that would lead me to be conservative, even though I do have 2 wands, until I can turn the corner safely, I guess. So what I do here is what I said is maybe just stun one of the flyers, draw a card, and play the Sandbinder and not attack with anything and just try to build my hand. That's what I think I would do in this position.
Yeah, it's actually, I guess I should have taken the screenshot a minute earlier, actually. I think this was delayed when I think this is one of those scenarios where I thought this was an interesting turn, and then I thought about it being the what's the play a little too late. Because
Yeah, you've already taken some actions in the turn.
yeah, which, I mean, I guess for discussion purposes, that makes it a little bit
It's still fine.
Yeah, so just to clarify real quick, so I didn't do that earlier, we actually have already drawn 2 cards because the opponent's dragons are they're going to untap or refresh next turn, which
Oh,
we
that's what you did. Okay,
No,
it
it
was
looks like
stun
you.
last.
It looks like you drew one card and you played the Longhorn to me, because it's not able to attack here.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair. That yeah, there you go. Wait. Yes,
But that would
yes.
be
That
only
no,
4
yeah,
power.
no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
2 for a card and 2 for a Longhorn.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
yeah. So see, there's still a discussion here. Yes, because we still
You
have
may have drawn the Longhorn and played it.
yes, no, that's exactly what happened because yeah, because we still have some lines here. A couple options we have is to just for the sake of brevity, a couple of lines that we have here is much like what Alex said. We can attack with our Grodos favored, and we still have the ability to conjuring should they throw a bunch of things to block, and then also roll the dice with the wind conjuring. We can potentially not do anything and hope to use the dive bomb to take out our opponent's flying dragons with pumping up our Grodos favored and our Intrepid Longhorn to block the 2 dragons and kill them. And then we can also just play the Sandbinder Sentinel to have another blocker on the board and take out one of the flyers. So those are, and then of course we have access to one more stun, which if we were going with the conjuring play, then we could still have access to draw another card, pump our team, or stun another one of the dragons. So there are a couple of intricate details in there as well, but before we get into it, because you're probably going to mention them, John, let's send it over to you.
So I don't think we can attack here without just leaving ourselves open to so many game-ending bad things, right? Like, it's just a little too sketchy, and like the opponent's at 27 life, so getting in there, with your 8/7 is not going to mean a lot. They may just take it. They may chump it. I think they would just take it. If they have something like Wind Conjuring, they stun 2 of your units. Depending on what you did here, you
Water
may be able to
Conjuring.
unstun one. That's what I mean. Yeah, Water Conjuring. They may, you may be able to unstun one with your Wind Conjuring, but that's like you may just like be leaving yourself dead on board. They have this lifesteal going on. Like you're not winning a race right now. Like I don't think this is the turn where we can get aggressive. In my opinion, I think for me, I think I just play since you've already taken these actions we described. I think at this point, I just go ahead and play the 5-drop, the Sandbiter Sentinel, and shut down one of these 2/5 lifesteal flyers that's coming off of stun on the opponent's turn. And in that case, I'm expecting to take 1 attack for 2 in the air next turn. You said the opponent's been being very passive, so they may just hold back. But I would assume they would attack with at least, with the remaining flyer that they have that can just attack. And so like I'm willing to take 2 there, and then I feel like at that point I've completely stabilized with what I have in hand. I'll be able to deal with that flyer on the next turn with the dive bomb for sure. If I draw some kind of way to deal with the flyer in another way, I could use that dive bomb to help push some serious damage and close out the game quickly on a future turn. We've got these stuns available. We've got card draw available. Like we have all but stabilized here as long as we survive this next turn with minimal damage. And so I think it's really crucial that we do that. So yeah, that's why I go with the Sandbiter play here.
Yeah, you broke it down. The one last thing I did want to mention, which is another incentive to not attack, is the fact that they do have a 1/5 Griffin and a 1/4 Gruon to potentially soak up a bunch of damage from the favored. So
yeah,
that
your
also
two
makes it-
twos, like they're not doing literally nothing by not attacking here. It's holding back those 2/2 humbugs are holding back 2 ground units, like straight up right now. So like there's no harm in just completely holding back here. Not just with the humbugs, but like because you mentioned attacking with the Grodos favored, but like even just considering a single humbug attacking in here, I don't think that's worth it.
Yeah, especially at such a high life total. I think you're right. I think it's not the point to turn the corner just yet. I think the biggest thing that gives the options every turn in this is just the fact that we have access to double wand, which gives us so much diversity. But I agree with you. I ended up taking the line that you mentioned where I sandbinded a dragon.
Specifically, I would do the one that has not popped off its mastery yet.
Yep, yeah, and that's exactly what we did as well. And the reason being that is the fact that the one that already turned on, having evasion has a higher chance of getting in damage. And so what John's doing by stopping the one that hasn't hit his mastery the one that hit at mastery already did its thing, so we don't care if it gets in additional damage. So we might as well take the evasion away from the one that doesn't, because at this point, any spell they have gets +3 spell damage, which is pretty big.
Yeah, like a seer could kill us with that 2 damage plus this additional spell damage. Like it could literally be lethal next turn just from that.
And actually, it was a good play that we didn't activate. So this line does sacrifice one activation of the wand, but I think it was that we're further developing our board and taking away our opponent's chances of getting in additional damage, and it worked out because I actually think this was the turn we fell to 3, if I remember correctly. I think our opponent had a win, the water conjuring you mentioned, and so
Wow.
they stunned. I think it was the Sandbinder, Sentinel, and the Grodos favored, and swung. I don't remember if it was an A space or not, but I feel like it was. It's when we get this is the. I almost want to say like it doesn't matter, but yeah, I think capitalizing on using the wands every turn, drawing any additional card we can when we can, and then just kind of getting that semi like virtual 2-for-1 off of
That's
the
inevitability.
Sandbiter, yeah, and the Sandbiter this turn went a long way, because those dragons were going to be one of the ways we essentially lose.
Mhm.
It was an interesting game to navigate, so I definitely encourage you guys to check the VOD if you can, because of the fact that it's one of those weird things like, do we draw a card here? Do we stun the unit here? And then obviously the +1/+1 would have came into effect later on once we were able to turn the corner, but I don't think it ever did. But yeah. And then of course, there's a consideration to the high roll off of the Wind Conjuring, which we got the Emerald, what's it called? It's the 0/8 weapon that at the end of the turn or at
Emerald
the start,
Incarnation,
there
yeah.
you go. Yeah, that's exactly what we got. I do remember that because I forgot what was the other card that was in there that I thought about taking, but we ended up taking it because we wanted the life cushion, and yeah, we ended up winning off of it, making like a 7/7 or something like that. So
Cool.
yeah, very interesting game. I definitely do encourage you to take a look at this and see what you would have done, maybe even leading up to it and stuff. But that's our what's the play. So that leads us to constructed corner. So this weekend. Oh, I didn't even notice on the that you wrote that in the notes, John. As far as the 3 relics, my bad.
Now you started off with it, and I like doing this. I like doing these breakdowns like fresh without thinking about them ahead of time too. Like,
Yeah, I think it adds a little bit of realism to it, and kind of also allows us to throw, because yeah, like actually it was interesting that Alex mentioned the attack with Grodov's favor, because I could see that to slowly start whittling down their board, right? So they can't go wide on us, but at the same time, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I like it, because there is at some point where if you're already on the back foot, you need to start taxing your opponent and just not giving them free reign. But Menace obviously having access to fire makes it very dangerous as well. Anywho, okay, constructed corner. This past weekend we had the second iteration of the Spring Invitational. They did the Expedition first, then they did Throne. So it was anyone that reached the 25 QCP. No, what is it? CP points. Anyways.
yeah, QCPs.
Yeah, there you go. Anyone that had the points got to an invite to play in this tournament. And Sunnyvale, Friends of Eternal, longtime streamer, took it down finally, making consistent top 8s, I think. At the very least, consistent top 16s over the last X amount of tournaments. Very consistent, solid player. Check out his stream and his podcast.
A real stand-up dude.
Yeah. And
well.
The impressive thing is the fact that he took it down with mono fire. And he said it himself, he had a little bit of luck because he went up against various Blink Moth decks with a bunch of X1s in his deck. And but he got there. He took it down. So shout out to Sunnyvale for earning that ticket. Very well deserved. And we're going to break down the deck very quickly. And I will admit, I like Mono Fire for jamming, climbing the ladder, just because it's fast. You get a lot of games in. And, the quicker I get to Masters in Constructed, the sooner I can go back to drafting. So let's start it off. 2 Charchain Flail, 4 Kazu. I forgot. I think the actual name is Kazuo. But, Kazu, Melee Virtuoso. 4 Oni Patrol, 4 Oni Ronin, 4 Torch, 4 Seer, 4 Tota Pioneer, 4 Yeti Cookmaster. That's right, Yeti Cookmaster. 4 Yeti Pioneer, 4 Ixton Merchant, 4 Jek Mercenary Hunter, which is the one from the latest campaign, 4 Milos Rebel Bomber, 4 Thunder of Wings, 9 Fire Sigil, 4 Emblem of Shavka, 4 Granite Coin, 4 Granite Waystone, 4 Seal of Devotion, with a market consisting of 4 Warhelm, Phoenix Stone, Caleb's Persuader, and Shugo Standard. Deck is good. It's like I said, it literally took me to Masters today. So you're playing a lot of games, you're getting underneath a lot of strategies. I will say this: the reason why I doubled up on the fact that Sunny definitely got lucky is that this deck can power through 1 Blink Moth. But if they're able to play 2 Blink Moths on you, you're really hard pressed to win that game. Like, really hard pressed. Trying to think if there's anything else. The synergies between Tota Pioneer and Ixton Merchant and the Waystone Gate and the Emblem and Jek cause Yeti Cookmaster to often attack for 5 on a turn, which could be very impressive. It is still a liability in X1, but this deck does pretty decent against the turn to seed. Pretty decent because no one of your units is backbreaking, and so it's just kind of a spread. Tota Pioneer is definitely the all-star in this deck for sure, along with Thunder of Wings. Jek and Milos are good, don't get me wrong, but I think because of how low to the ground this deck is, you win a lot more games off of Tota Pioneer being able to pump one of these smaller units to get an additional damage, and Thunder of Wings evasion to really close out the game. Do you have anything to add? I know, well, both of you guys watch Sunny play, so do any of you guys have anything to add about the deck and or Sunny?
Congrats, Sunny. Well played. Better to be lucky and good, which you're clearly both. You played great. It was great to watch. Congrats. The deck is really cool. It's definitely ladder capable. I know Jedi's been playing it on ladder and has been doing well with it. It has so many like small synergies that make it just such a consistent, nice aggressive mono faction deck, which is not a very common thing in Eternal. It's very affordable. It's just
on that note, just to interject, without not including the campaign cards, it is 26,200 shipstone.
Yeah, and it's literally the only legendaries are in the market, and so like that's naturally something that you can easily put something comparable in if you want to save on just those 2 legendaries. But all the rares in this deck are very safe crafts, like with this slight exception of maybe Kazuo, but I think he's safe enough. I mean, rares are not that bad to craft, and then the other ones are going to make plenty of other decks. Ixton Merchant and the Emblems of Shavka, and the Seals of Devotion don't make that many decks because, like I just mentioned, there's not that many mono faction decks, but they seem to be adding in more reasons to be mono faction lately, so it's a trend. I think it's also a pretty safe craft. Like, as far as decks in Eternal go, I think it doesn't get much safer than this as far as crafting these cards. And yeah, it's just Milos and Jek as far as campaign cards, which unfortunately is 2 different campaigns, right? It's one from the last one and one from the one right before.
Yes, correct.
It's a little unlucky there, but
that being said, the both those campaigns had some playables, but definitely the one with Jek, like, man, that campaign has definitely made an impact in the game as a whole, for sure.
Yeah, I mean they really both did, but in kind of very different ways. But yeah, like Jek is very powerful right now.
Yeah, and then plus, like, once again, just on a slight tangent, being free to play is perfectly fine. It's great. I know a lot of people wear it like a badge of honor, but it is perfectly okay to spend money in this game as well. I like the fact that the people that spend the money in the game do help support Direwolf that made this game and give them a reason to continue to support this game. So I'm not knocking anyone for being free to play. For the most part, I'm free to play. I think John, you and I are kind of the same boat. We spend gems for competitive events and the campaigns, and that's about it. So
you more than me because you also do more drafting on stream, and you may may not be just trying as hard as you can to get your gold back, but more for entertainment value in that case. So like obviously you'd be spending more, but yeah, I agree. Like these are great devs to support. We all love this game, and you get the most kind of value for your gems if like by spending the gems on campaigns in particular. As far as like if you think about the value for gold events and packs and things like that, like if you look at all the things in Eternal, that's like the best gem to value ratio in the game is spending that on campaigns. So yeah, if you're gonna give them money for gems and spend it on one campaigns.
And honestly, the competitive events as well. I think I honestly, I'm really surprised when people buy into the competitive events with gold because like, dude, it's like 30,000 or 35,000. It's like something preposterous. I'm like, dude, you know how many drafts that is, or how much time it takes you to farm that? I don't know. I mean,
That's how I've been doing it, except for I think one of them.
Wow.
But yeah,
pretty impressive. I don't know. It's just worth my time to just be like, all right, sure, here's my $12. Like, just let me play or whatnot. Because I mean, the rewards kind of give you your packs back anyway, your money back anyway. So, anywho, that was a slight tangent, but either way, we support all forms of play in this podcast. We're definitely not gonna knock the free to play or the quote unquote whales or anyone in between. So, shout out to you guys. I gotta say this though, John, actually, because you mentioned that. Believe it or not, I actually haven't had to spend gems on drafting since the Goblin drafts. The Goblin drafts definitely wore me out, and I definitely had to buy into some drafts. But since then, I've actually somehow managed to stay on my comeuppance. So,
way to go! I mean, it's because we're obviously killing it in this format. EternalJourney crew across the board. No problem.
Alex, you like aggressive decks. You saw the invitational. You got any last words in Constructed Corner?
Yeah, just congrats to Sonny, local California Bay Area kid there, and I mean, what really made the deck sing for me was the fact that it was mono fire, and he was able to pitch just straight sigils to make Jack double damage. That really worked good. That's Jack that does that, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it was just fun to watch aggro take something down instead of all these super slow, grindy mirror matches. It was fun. I liked it. So way to go, Sonny.
The one thing I will mention that because I've actually done a lot of reps with the deck now, is there is a slight nombo which is totally negligible, but it's very interesting that you run into is the power tension between Jek and Toda Pioneer. So with Toda Pioneer, you actually want to play your sigils, your fire sigils first, so you can draw the second card off of Granite Waystone and Emblem of Shavka to get the additional power from Toda Pioneer. Because I'll tell you what, that's one of the ways this deck really explodes is when you get all that extra power to do extra things on your turn. But then when you have Jek, it's actually the opposite. You want to play your emblems and your coins and your Waystones first to have a higher chance of keeping your fire sigils to give Jek double damage. So I think that's an interesting interaction, as well as the Seal of Devotion. Jek is triple fire, so it's great to play Seal of Devotions off your deck, but sometimes you actually can't afford to it's weird. It's an interesting tension, which I think is totally fine for the deck. I'm not knocking it at all, but it's kind of more advice for the people that are playing the deck. So pretty much I just go with the rule of thumb of whichever one I have in my hand is the one I play towards. Because Jek can still win the game dealing 2 and 2 instead of 4. And then sometimes that 4 is very powerful as well. But sometimes you don't see Jek, or sometimes you have the Toda Pioneer. And yeah, so there's a little bit of tension there for sure. But I think it just adds to more intricate, gameplay from a mono red deck.
Cool. Also, I mean, while we're here, right? Got to mention my boy Jedi here made day 2 to this tournament as well. Didn't take it down like Sonny, but congrats to you as well, my friend.
Top 32. Congrats, my friend.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shoot, dang, that was this weekend. Yeah, thanks guys.
It was, yeah. It's so many tournaments this month. It's crazy. We got another one. Starts in 2 days that I still don't have. I just brewed 30 decks, so I'm not even close to having a deck for that one.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you'll narrow it down to your top 12 decks to play
By tomorrow.
I need to start making you do. We might might have like I might start putting some kind of limit on you, like, hey John, you're doing this week's constructed corner. I want three decks for people to play, or make you do an article. That way, it's like gives you a timetable, a deadline.
I don't mind that, honestly. It's kind of funny. Like, you gave me that one homework like a week ago for a deck, and I brewed I think two, but unfortunately, it's like you asked the it was like a meme card built around, so I haven't bothered to like actually craft all. I have to craft this meme card in order to test it, so
Yeah.
just haven't gotten around to it. But like I've theory crafted. I've got two lists for it already for you there. So
Well, sweet. You guys here to hear. Expect those videos on YouTube soon.
yeah.
I'm gonna start dabbling into a little more constructed videos for YouTube exclusive, so check that out. But yeah, speaking of which, you guys can catch my entire run of my invitational. Once again, like they mentioned, I managed to make it to top 32, so took 2 rounds in the day 2. That's all on YouTube, so you can check it out on there. I did leave I streamed day 1. I did not stream day 2, but I did go. So I left pretty much the entire stream on there. I normally cut out the in between games and kind of streamline it, but I left it in there because of the fact that it was a competitive event, much like we talked about with Yoda Bite when he was on the show. So I was not interacting with chat during my games, and then interacting with chat in between the games. So I left the whole stream on there because of the fact that we had a lot of discussions about lines of play and things like that, and misplays and whatnot in between. So I think there's a lot of information to gain there. But
Yeah, I think for anyone looking to get into the competitive Eternal scene, I think watching somebody compete and then like analyze some of their gameplay and some of their mistakes, I think, there's not a lot of avenues to do that out there without being on a team or things like that. I know Sonny also was kind enough to kind of do a similar thing for his run this time, which is extra cool because, like we just mentioned, he took down the tournament. But yeah, like I really appreciate like super high level content like that as a competitive Eternal player. So thank you for that.
my pleasure, buddy. I appreciate it. Yeah, shout out to the great fans. But that's gonna do it. That's our show, guys. So a couple things. Well, we already mentioned the YouTube EternalJourney on YouTube. Look it up. You get all kinds of great content. I'm trying to sneak these guys into more drafts so we could do more co-op drafting videos. That was a lot of fun. We do it anyways, but I need to record them for you guys. And then you can check us out on Twitch live every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And of course, our Discord, phenomenal place. That's where we do all our co-op drafting. We got MLNTN on the stream the other night. He was doing a draft. He was kind of shaky about the new format. So I'm like, dude, why not? It's still drafting. We screen shared and had him on the live stream. So that was a lot of fun as well. And you can check these two great guys on the Discord 24/7. One of us.
I may not respond 24/7, but I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, we get our answers in, right? We try to we do a pretty good job of responding to everyone that tags us. Might not be the most timely response, but we always respond.
Yeah.
And definitely. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of seal pools is one of the biggest things that people like to do. They post a seal pool in a thread, and we just break it down, and everyone kind of posts the deck they would have built, and it's a lot of fun. I think that's great. Shout out to Dire Snail. She's consistently gotten better every week. A bunch of people. We got Chastity Weaver that is now doing drafts because of the information we put out there, and Sokka.
She's killing it.
Yeah, Sokka. A bunch of people.
Way to go, Chaz.
A bunch of people have made Masters now for the first time, or gotten their 7 wins for the first time, which is absolutely super rewarding. Totally makes this podcast worth it. So yeah, definitely check it out. And lastly, I wanted to lock in a date prior to this podcast to push it out, but I didn't. I want to look at the schedule, but expect our charity peasant event going on either not this weekend, the following weekend as release of this podcast, or the weekend after that. I'm going to double check, but keep it on your calendars. We'll solidify it, start putting it out on information, but in the next, past this weekend, so either in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we will be having our...
You're for sure going to do peasant? again.
Yeah. I think a lot of people actually really like that format, and
Yeah,
it's actually
and we've got new cards. Like, I mean, yeah, it's a new peasant format. So start brewing.
well, actually, we don't have new cards because of the fact that we're not going to include the campaigns. But
True.
yeah,
Good point.
It's one of those things. Like some of the
My bad.
Like I would have been totally down to add the commons and uncommons from these last two campaigns, but there, like it's. I mean, I guess I could, right? We could just specify that you could use the two last.
You can do
campaigns.
whatever you want, but yeah, just decide ahead of time. People that start brewing.
I just always try to make it as simple as possible. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean things like Pride Leader and Inquisitor's Blade and stuff like that kind of make the commons and uncommons from previous campaigns a little too busted.
Let's think about it.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion about it because it might not be too hard, right? Like if people are already gotten used to Expedition being like, hey, card A and B are good this week, but C and D are not, but you could play E. So maybe we can make it to where like, hey, you can use the commons and uncommons from these two campaigns, but everything previous and the Conjurings are banned. I don't know. We'll figure it out. That might be a good consideration though, because I would like to see showcase some new cards. Either way, I still think it's going to be a brand new format because the most popular or the decks that took it down last tournament was the destruction decks, and those got a huge nerf. So
true.
There might
all
be
those cards.
There might be a chance that it's still a new format. So I'm not sure. And it could just be people just need a little more time to break new decks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But keep that on the calendar, guys. It was a great cause. We had a ton of fun. We're putting together a really solid team to make sure this one runs even smoother to include broadcasting. So tune in for that. But yeah, John, you're kind of streaming a little more, kind of creeping into it. You want to plug yourself a little bit?
My internet's working a little bit more now, but yeah, I'm still mostly doing Eternal stuff on the Discord, but I think I'm gonna get on Twitch here sometime soon for some Eternal. But yeah, I've been doing some other games, but I know these lovely people aren't that into that. But yeah, when I do get back on Eternal, make sure you follow me twitch.tv/John Holio.
Alex, anything from you, my man?
No, just see you guys on the Discord. It was a good time talking with you guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm digging this format. Direwolf did a good job. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. And until then, as always, happy gaming.
Bye.
Good luck in your draft queues, everyone.